Welcome to episode 399 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Meyers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I am interviewing writer-director Ramin Niami, who just did a contained thriller feature called Eye Without a Face. We talk about his career, some of his early projects, and of course how he got this new thriller produced. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking or sharing it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcasts, and then just look for episode number 399. If you want my free guide, How to Sell a Screenplay in 5 Weeks, you can pick that up by going to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. It's completely free. You just put in your email address and I'll send you a new lesson once per week for 5 weeks, along with a bunch of bonus lessons. I'll teach the whole process of how to sell your screenplay in that guide. I'll teach you how to write a professional logline inquiry letter, how to find agents, managers, and producers who are looking for material. Really is everything you need to know to sell your screenplay. Just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/guide. Quick few words about what I'm working on. So today is the day that we made our announcement for SYS's six-figure screenplay contest for all the screenplays that made it into the second round. Congratulations to all of those writers whose screenplays were chosen. Big congratulations to them. It's always tough telling some writers that they didn't make it. That's the hard part of running the contest and the part that I really don't look forward to. But hopefully all the writers who entered at least learned something, and we've hopefully provided at least some value to everybody that entered. I hope people look at my contest, and really I hope people look at all screenplay contests, and even more broadly, all screenwriting services, as just one small litmus test where your material, so you can learn where your material lands in the marketplace. Certainly one failed contest entry isn't enough to give up on your project. So I encourage everyone to get other opinions. And of course, if you still really believe in your project and you do a little bit of a rewrite on the script, there's always next year. You can enter the contest again. And of course, there's other contests as well. And of course, with a low budget screenplay that hopefully you have, since this is a low budget screenplay contest, there's always the possibility of you producing yourself. So always keep that out. Again, if you really believe in the project, definitely don't give up on it. Anyway, so I've been reading screenplays and getting them out to the industry judges, and we'll be making our quarterfinal announcement in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that. So that's been the main thing I've been working on here the last couple of weeks. So let's get into our main segment. Today I am interviewing writer-director Ramin Niami. Here is the interview. Welcome, Ramin, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Thank you very much.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
Well, I was brought up in Iran, but I always wanted to be a filmmaker. So after high school, I went to England and I studied first photography for a year, and then I went to film school. And I've been doing that ever since. I was lucky enough that when I finished the film school, I ended up being assistant to my teacher. So, that was the start. My background was really starting in documentary filmmaking, which was great introduction to actual filmmaking because you have to tell stories with images. And then I became interested in fiction. So I started, always watch a lot of movies. So I started basically writing scripts and, moving also to fiction.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of those steps. I know for my listeners, there's a lot of adults that have careers. Obviously, going from documentary filmmaker to narrative fiction filmmaker is not a huge leap, but maybe you can talk about some of those steps. When you were doing these documentaries, did you start to show some of your connections in the industry, some of your fictional screenplays? Did you start to pitch yourself as a writer-director? How did you make that leap from documentary filmmaker to, narrative fiction filmmaker?
Well, it was, as I say, first I wanted to have the confidence that I'm good enough, and because everybody writes scripts and it's like, is my script good enough? So one thing that was very useful was I got involved with some workshop that was directors and actors and writers, and we were working with actors, and so that's what's giving me a good workshop experience. And I started directing some off-Broadway plays. So I wanted to get more experience with actors, and that helped me in terms of, writing dialogue, like what is good dialogue, is, how people express themselves. And then I wrote a script that I said is good, and I produced it and directed it, and it was like everything else, trying to find investors. But one thing I'll say, that the reason that the film got made was because I had some very interesting, colorful characters in it, and that attracted some name actors. And bringing those actors into your project obviously helps in getting finance. So, as you know, having a cast is very important for investors and pre-sales and everything else.
Yeah. So no, that's good advice. I'm curious. I get a good number of emails from writers that are in Iran, and it sounds like the political situation is such that they don't feel like they can get their material out there. And I always wonder, what is your advice to people living back in Iran or any country where the government is maybe a little repressive and doesn't let people kind of create artistic works? What are those people? What do you recommend for those types of folks that are stuck in a situation like that?
The thing is, there is a big difference between filmmaking in Iran and here. I mean, I can tell you the good thing and the bad thing. I mean, obviously there are political restrictions, and you have problem in, making certain movies. But one thing Iran has that we don't have here is that's how a lot of the art house films are made. They are, in fact, with government subsidies. Most films that, Iranian art house films, they got, some kind of a government subsidies, which we don't have. So what they don't realize is that they think that if they come to U.S., people, they just write check and they make their movie. Because here, I find it incredibly hard, as you know, to find investment for your movie. So each system has its own advantage and disadvantage. But in terms of they are stuck there, well, scripts are not stuck. I mean, you can always send it to production companies or agencies or producers. So if they really think that the script is good, they can always send it to people. And I believe that if the script is good, there are people who will be interested in noticing it. The problem is sometimes it's not just a good script, is it marketable?
Yeah.
As you know. You may have a good script, but who wants to see the film? Filmmaking is very expensive, and we are in a commercial world. So I found that the problem with some of these scripts is that they are very, how can I say, personal and local. And it doesn't, one thing about American film is that you are making that film for U.S. market, you're making for the whole world. So there's stories, can that story travel? So this is the reality of it. You find something that people, investors have to get their money back. So my advice to everybody is that is not just think that's good. It's like people come to me and they have projects that say it's a great film, and I say, what's the budget? I say $20 million. I'm saying, but who wants to spend that money in this market, and how are you going to get that money back? Well, I'm just a writer. Well, you can't just be a writer, You have to think about, in this movie, Eye Without Face, obviously I thought that, kind of thriller horror is a particular genre that has an audience. But you have to have the budget. No, one director that I worked with him and I produced his first film brought me a very good script. But I said to him, this film will be at least $10 to $15 million. And it's going to be very hard to find $10 to $15 million for a horror film in this market.
Yeah, yeah. So let's dig into your new film, Eye Without a Face. Maybe to start out, you can give us a quick picture log line. What is the log line for Eye Without a Face?
Well, it's a modern Rear Window. It's about a hacker who hacks 6 apartments of young women, and then he believes that in one of them something is going on, and perhaps guys arrive in the apartment, but they never leave.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the story basically. It's inspired by those classics like Rear Window and Peeping Tom and Repulsion, you know.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about your writing process a little bit. Where do you typically write? Do you have a home office? Do you need ambient noise? You go to Starbucks? And when do you typically write? Do you write in the morning? Do you write late into the evening? What is your sort of writing schedule and look like?
But yes, I have to see the film so in my mind before I write it. I know some people that who start and, they make a lot of notes and then they start writing. I have to see it. So I have to dream, So I think about the film a lot. And when I start seeing a movie, that's when I start writing. So I usually write in the morning because I didn't sleep the whole night thinking about it. Uh-huh. Now, my starting point is it's not so much the plot, it's the character. And when I have an interesting character, then I put them in the situation that I think is exciting. And then, in a way, it's like, what is this character going to do in that situation? So sometimes I'm planning a film, but as I'm going along, it changes because I'm saying this is not what he would do. So I found the characters are very, very important. Now, my problem with a lot of scripts that people are sending me is that they concentrate so much on the main character and they forget about the others. So I just think everybody has to have an interesting character and background, and we have to know who they are. So that is my thing, is that finding a plot line, what I like, and develop the characters. I spend a lot of time thinking about the characters. And then I go along. And that process, obviously, the first draft is the hardest one. And, but I do a lot of rewrites. I rewrite and rewrite and rewrite. And again, one problem I have with some of the scripts I read, they look like first draft or second draft. But the script, in order to get to actually shooting, it needs to go through a lot of rewrites. And I am very experienced, but also I am very welcoming other people's comments. So I do give it to other people that I trust, and I give me notes. And I look at those notes very carefully and say, why did they say that? So if something is not clear in people are saying that, that's when I know I have to change that,
So you mentioned, as you were talking about, some of the scripts you've seen and people need $10 or $15 million for a horror movie would be difficult. Take us through some of your thinking with Eye Without a Face. Like, what is sort of your thinking? Did you talk to some distributors so you knew that if you kept this at a certain budget, there would be a market for it? What does your sort of vetting process look like? How do you know that this movie did have an audience? How do you at least take an educated guess that a movie like this could find an audience?
Yes, I've been working in this industry for a while, and I'm watching, and I do talk to distributors. I do talk to people who have streaming services. I do track films. When you talk to them and they say things like comedy or romantic comedy is, you have to have names. And dramas, it has to be something that goes to film festivals and you need to have good reviews. But genre films like thrillers, horror, you don't really need to have names. You need to have a film that works. And because people who watch this kind of thrillers or horrors, they don't necessarily are seeking big names in it. it's very hard to get people to watch a comedy if the people are not known.
Yeah.
So I was very aware of that. And, so I'm working on a genre that I know there is an audience for it, but it has to be good. And you have to have high production value, and you have to do whatever you can, to attract the talents. If you want to get a great composer, we had Charlie Clouser, who did all the Saw movies. Why would he do score in a low budget like this? Because he liked the film. So, that is, and getting the cast, getting production people, it has to be a good script. People have to be moved to work for less than their, salaries. And also other people have to be excited to give you, their equipment or, services that they need. So it comes to, it has to be very good script. Look, my advice to every writer is that we all fall in love with our script. We are living with our script. But how good is it? We have to accept criticism. And as I said, I do give it to people if I give it to 5 people and 4 of them liked it and one of them didn't, that's 4 people, liked it. So it's good. You can't satisfy everybody. But if 5 people say, well, it's not working, then it's not working. I can't just say, well, you don't understand. So my advice is that work on it and work on workshops. I have reading with your script with actors, hear the lines, is it working? Is it easy for actors? I always do a quick read at least with all my actors and I listen to them. And I listen to the comments that my actors are making about those lines. If they are not comfortable or they ask me a question, why am I saying this? I don't try to defend myself. I try to understand, what is in their mind. Why are they saying that? And, because the collaboration, filmmaking is collaboration.
Yeah, very, very sound advice for sure. Okay, so you're also one of the producers, so I assume you were involved in the raising of the money. Maybe you can talk through that process a little bit. Once you had a screenplay that you were happy with, how did you then take that from screenplay to produced movie?
As I said, nowadays, it's not, unless you are with some producer who has access to money, usually what happens is you have to attract a package that's interesting, which means that you have to have a cast, you have to have other elements that you think is attractive. So you put those things together and then you talk to see, to get some feedback from who are the potential distributor. And then you go up to money people. Now, if you're just a writer and you don't want to produce it, then you have to find a producer who will do that for you, who will make it exciting, because it's very rare that people say they write a check and then you go around and you make an offer to actors. So it's complicated because getting actors, you need, money and, to find money, you need actors. So it's like you have to find, and also you have to think about why would an actor wants to do your movie, especially if there are some kind of a name or something. And as I said, horror film is different because you don't necessarily need to have name actors. But
so what did your package look like? So you had the script, and what was your package when you started approaching investors? What did you have in place? Obviously you were the writer, the director, producer, you have a track record. Did you have some talent? And if so, what was the talent you had attached, and what other attachments did you have in place when you started approaching financiers and production companies?
Yeah, well, this was different because we were, I got some really great creative people who said they love the project, they helped me.
Gotcha.
And that is from production designer who's very experienced, the sound people, the guys who did, in fact, sound my movie, You said about Iranian Reza Narimizadeh. He did sound in both of the Farhadi movies that won Academy Award. So I had some really experienced creative people, and then what happened? My daughter shot the movie, and then so I suddenly realized that I have a lot of the elements. I mean, why, when we say money, why do we need money for? The fact is, I realized that, I have a lot of the budget through the services and people. And this was unusual, but maybe it's not for low budget films. So what I did was basically I made a lot of these people partners. So my actors and the cast and crew has real profit participation in the movie. So that brought our cash budget a lot lower than normal. We really brought it down a lot. And that is include also, places that did our color correction, all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. So when I brought that down, I realized that I don't need a lot. And I had produced 2 films for other people. So I put a lot of my own money in it. And then a couple of friends also put money. So everything I saw is coming together because I realized that like this, I have much more control over the distribution. Mm-hmm. I didn't want, basically, let me tell you, I didn't want an investor gives me that money and takes everything because these people are going to work for me for very little money. Mm-hmm. It's not their salary. And the person thinking that is paying them little and owns the film, I thought it's unfair. Either, you pay people what they get or you come with this kind of arrangement. Mm-hmm. So, but I must say to you, as I said, people who work on it, they like the project. And, that was important things that too, even when we wanted to do, our color correction, or mm-hmm. things like that. I went to top places and I said to them, we have very little money, but this is really good. So I looked at the film and they said, okay, we do it. I mean, this has happened to me in the past. I mean, I did a film before this and I did all my color correction at Warner Brothers. So even at studios, mm-hmm. they do find if they like your project, they give you a lot of break,
Gotcha. Yeah.
So for independent producers, if you have something that you believe, and then they actually think it's good, they can, they want to give break to people mm-hmm. if they like the project.
Yeah, for sure. How can people see Eye Without a Face? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
Yes, on August 10, it's going to be in U.S., Canada, and it's going to be in lots of cables, like Direct Cinema, Spectrum, a lot of these things. And then it's going to be in iTunes, Amazon, Redbox streaming. It's going to be in Fandango, Vudu. Okay. It's going to be Google Play. It's going to be in, a lot of them. So if anybody wants to know where it is, eyewithoutaface.com. They can see it. Where it's going to be released. Perfect. Also, it's going to be at UK in 23rd, okay. August 23rd. And right now it's playing on HBO Central, which is Eastern Europe.
Perfect. Well, Ramin, I really appreciate you coming on and talking with me today. Good luck with this film and good luck with all your future films as well.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Yep, we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
A quick plug for the SYS Screenwriting Analysis Service. It's a really economical way to get a high-quality professional evaluation on your screenplay. When you buy our 3-pack, you get evaluations at just $67 per script for feature films and just $55 for teleplays. All the readers have professional experience reading for studios, production companies, contests, and agencies. You can read a short bio on each reader on our website, and you can pick the reader who you think is the best fit for your script. Turnaround time time is usually just a few days, but rarely more than a week. The readers will evaluate your script on 6 key factors: concept, character, structure, marketability, tone, and overall craft, which includes formatting, spelling, and grammar. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend, which should help you roughly understand where your script might rank if you were to submit it to a production company or agency. We can provide an analysis on features or television scripts. We also do proofreading without any analysis. We will also look at a treatment or outline and give you the same analysis on it. So if you're looking to vet some of your project ideas, this is a great way to do it. We will also write your logline and synopsis for you. You can add this logline and synopsis writing service to an analysis, or you can simply purchase this service as a standalone product. As a bonus, if your screenplay gets a recommend or a consider from one of our readers, you get to list the screenplay in the SYS Select database, which is a database for producers to find screenplays and a big part of our SYS Select program. Producers are in the database searching for material on a daily basis, so it's another great way to get your material in front of them. As a further bonus, if your script gets a recommend from one of our readers, your screenplay will get included in our monthly Best Of newsletter. Each month we send out a newsletter that highlights the best screenplays that have come through our script analysis service. This is a monthly newsletter that goes out to our list of over 400 producers who are actively looking for material. So again, this is another great way to get your material out there. So if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. So next week is the 400th episode of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I've been doing this podcast for quite a while now, It sometimes surprises me. So next week, I'm going to do something a little different, kind of mix things up for our 400th episode. I'm going to have Richard Finney on next week. He is a writer and also a producer, and he's also one of our industry judges for SYS's Six-Figure Screenplay Contest. I had him on a couple of months ago in episode 387, so check that episode out if you haven't already. We talk a little bit more about sort of his story, how he got into the industry, sort of broke in and became a professional screenwriter. Richard and I had a number of great conversations. He was actually curious to see my film, The Rideshare Killer, so I actually sent him a cut of that. And then he and I had a number of great conversations about my movie, and that conversation sort of bled over into talking about other films and sort of how they were working together, the mechanics of those films, the premise, the structure. And I thought this would make a great topic for an episode. So next week, that's what we're going to do. He's going to come on and really kind of give us his sort of take on premises and sort of the mechanics of how these screenplays work. We'll be digging into some great films, Back to the Future, Star Wars, Speed, a whole bunch of other great films, some TV shows like Breaking Bad and Dexter. So hopefully it'll be a real interesting episode, but definitely it'll be a little bit different than what you're used to here at Selling Your Screenplay. So keep an eye out for that episode next week. That's our show. Thanks for listening.